Let's turn to autos. Nissan unveiling its vision for an AI-defined vehicle, announcing plans to use cutting-edge software to shrink development times and fast-track autonomous driving technology across 90% of its lineup. Joining us now is the Nissan president and CEO, Ivan Espinosa. Ivan, good to see you, sir. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
With us here in New York. One question, okay, and then we're going to move on quickly, I promise. How many cars have you sold in Seabreeze Blue Pearl in the last few months since a well-known manufacturer came out with a very expensive car in what looked like Seabreeze Blue Pearl?
Well, it was a surprise for us to see this car coming out because it's coincidentally the same color, emblematic color that we use for our launch of the Nissan Leaf. So it was an interesting surprise, I would say.
I'll move on quickly for you so we don't have to talk about it too much. Let's talk about the new cars. Can you describe for our audience the future of driving and what it's going to look like? Because if you think about what it's been like for the last century, it really hasn't changed too much. Right. 4 wheels, a driver, a wheel. Right. You know, that's how it works. It gets better, technology improves, but we haven't seen massive changes. How different is it going to be in the future?
The experience is going to completely evolve. So we're working a lot with AI technology to bring the cars into a full autonomous end-to-end experience, where you simply sit in the car behind the wheel. The car will take over for you. Let's say, you know, I'm living in Japan. So let's say you go and play golf on the weekend. If you enjoy driving, maybe you enjoy driving in the morning towards the golf course. You drive by yourself, but then on the way back, there's usually a lot of traffic. So you will just ask the car to drive for yourself, engage the autonomous mode, and then you can just either relax, check your news. There's a lot of things that you can do with the people's time while they're sitting in the cabin, because we have 2 massive screens in front of them, and then we can feed a lot of information. We can make their lives more productive, entertainment. There's a lot of things that we are imagining for the future.
Development times are an interesting piece of this as well. I'd love to breathe some life into that conversation. If you're in a car lot right now and you're trying to sell individual cars, it's a dream if you work for a manufacturer that can cut lead times for development and bring new cars to market. It helps them sell.
Right.
It helps them sell. That's what a lot of companies are looking for. How's this going to change too?
Well, we have evolved a lot. You know, in the past 18 months, we have shortened our development process by around 40%. So now we are able of putting new cars on the road in 30 months from the concept, moment all the way to the start of production. 30 months for a global development car. So this is the speed that Nissan has now, and it's helping us adjust a lot our launching schedules. And it's the future because the world is so unpredictable these days. We used to be a company that put a lot of energy forecasting and trying to predict what will happen in the future. But this is impossible now. You know, with all the geopolitics and play and the context in which we live, it's very complicated. So we decided to put our energy just on being a nimbler and quicker company because this is a way to cope with the uncertainty of the world. And as I said, we have reduced our development times now by 40%.
It does seem like these two things are at odds, right? On one hand, you've got the technological advancement that can speed things up, and then you've got policy that's just completely all over the place when it comes to things like autonomous driving and how you even test it. I mean, where do you think you're going to see the acceleration of autonomous driving in Nissan's market the fastest, just based on what you're allowed to test and what you're allowed to roll out?
Right. Well, I think we need to go step by step. That technology today is actually ready. You can, with the technology that we are working today with our partner Wave, actually it's almost level 4 ready. So it means a driverless car. But we need to go step by step, not only because of the regulators, but also because of the consumers. We don't want the consumers to, suddenly be averse of the technology. We need to go one step at a time, and we will gradually introduce this technology. We're starting with our products in Japan. We will have a first end-to-end capable car, which is called El Grand. We will launch at the end of next fiscal year 27, and then we will gradually roll out this technology all over the world. We want to have the technology applied in as much as 90% of our lineup. So the technology is really promising, is super exciting, and it's the future of the automobile.
There also have been all of these international moats that have been created, particularly with the auto sector in the United States. How much do you see the weaker yen as an offset to that, given the fact that maybe you could even offer a cheaper price or have some sort of ability to maneuver on that competitive angle?
Well, actually, the world, again, as I was saying, is very unpredictable. So you need to hedge your bets and you need to remain flexible. And this is what we're doing. Our industrial footprint, one of the beauties that it has is that we are so widely spread around the world that we have the ability to pivot depending on what happens with one thing is a forex exchange, but you have other things like policy, like new rules, emissions. There's so many things happening all over the place that you need to remain very nimble and very widely spread and play a good strategy. Yeah.
But specifically to Lisa's point, with the strengthening of the dollar, the weakening of the yen, are you going to, at this moment, change any of your plans to capitalize on that?
No, we will continue the strategy that we have set in the U.S., which is building cars in the U.S. We have two very large manufacturing sites, one in Smyrna, Tennessee, the other in Canton, Mississippi. And we will continue doing that. So to give you some numbers, last year, January, around 45% of our product mix was built in the U.S. The rest was imported from either Japan or Mexico. And we closed the year with 60% of our product mix being built in the U.S. And we will continue doing that because it makes sense. With the current context in which we're living, it does make sense to continue investing in the U.S. and continue bringing more cars into North America.
Given the current tariff environment, I believe for every auto produced in Mexico, it's about $2,000 or $3,000 more. What are you doing with that? How much is being passed on to the consumer, and how much are you just absorbing?
Well, we have a very aggressive cost reduction program, which we started a year ago when I took over the company. And we are focusing a lot on the products that are built in Mexico because they are cost competitive, but it's true, they are currently tariffed 25%, which is it's making part of the lineup that we're bringing from Mexico difficult to sell. So we have a very strong cost reduction program on those vehicles because we do see an opportunity. Looking at the pressure that the U.S. market has today in terms of affordability, we see that potentially some of the buyers could be moving into these type of vehicles. So we are working very strongly on making them more competitive so we can probably take advantage of that if you can.
Ivan, can we wrap it up by talking about China?
Sure.
How difficult is it to compete with Chinese auto manufacturers?
Well, China is a world of its own, I would say. It's a very unique ecosystem.
What makes it unique?
I think the technology, speed, costs, they're moving at a very different speed than the rest of the world. And for me, it's important to remain present in China because I believe a lot of the future standards of the industry are being set by some of the Chinese players today. Again, in terms of speed, in terms of costs, and in terms of technology. So for me, the role of China is twofold. One is, of course, continuing to produce and sell cars in China, because we have over 15 million users of Nissan products in that country. So we owe them product that is competitive and that is attractive for them. But at the same time, it's a place where you can learn a lot and you can start exporting some of the methods, some of the processes and new ways of working that we have discovered there. Can you give us an
example? What can we learn from what they've done? An industry right now that they seem to be dominating.
Well, one of the things is when you look at the products in China today, almost 80% of the products that are offered have autonomous technology embedded. And customers are now not considering to buy a car if you don't offer some level of autonomous technology. So this is just an example of what can happen and what we can imagine coming out from this unique ecosystem that they have.